episode 2 of the Kanye West documentary, and it's pretty good. It's brilliant work, man. It's brilliant work right there. I think anybody, even if you're not a fan of him today, I gotta respect the man's tenacity and his willingness to grind and to make himself a star. Because the old Ye, he was hungry. The old Ye, he had ambition, and the old Ye wanted to be heard. Because look at this, man. 2002, Rockefeller was like, what, the Lakers in 2000? They were kicking ass.
That's hard.
They were kicking ass, man. They had an all-star lineup, and, you know, Kanye coming in that situation as a producer/rapper, he wasn't going to really stand out. What I liked about some of the scenes there was he never stopped working. Like, he wanted to make his album because he wanted to tell his story. Like, you get to see what he went through with the car accident. There was even scenes where Rockefeller, they cut his budget, they shelved his album, and he had to go into different people's studios to record the joints. And there was some real dope studio sessions there, too. That's what I love to watch about this documentary, is that you get to see these studio sessions. You get to see where the magic is being created, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And one thing about it, about Kanye, for clarification on this show, yes, I have said some things critical of Kanye that I felt was ill-timed and even irresponsible. But I will say this on the air. One thing you will never, ever, ever hear me say about that man is that man is not talented and he is not a genius. I don't agree with everything he has done at times. I don't agree with everything he has said. But when you look at how he has created, and like King said, the tenacity, the determination, the drive, the unparalleled belief that he had once he really got his mojo running about what he was going to do and achieve, you have to respect somebody who had that scope of how he was going to do it, like Sinatra said, his way. And it's always going to be when we think about his legacy, King, by the time, and we by no means want him to go anytime soon. When his legacy is written, it's going to be it's going to be uneven on a lot of levels. There were comments that he has made, the slavery comments, the run for president, the outburst. That's going to be looked at because that happened not only from what he said, but how he said it and did it in such a public fashion. On this show, we get wild and crazy, but we are never out to skewer. We may be skewer, which is, in show business terms, just to have fun with. But we will never impale or harpoon to harm somebody's credibility or reputation. We just call it on this show like we see, in terms of what people do. From having said all, and having said all that, one thing about Kanye Omari West is this: musically, he has created sounds that have defined a generation, that have inspired so many, behind him. You got to remember, Kanye's been in this game really over almost 25 years. In terms of, when he started, some of his early production credits, like the infamous Syndicate album, Changing the Game, released in 1998 on Relatively Records. If you do not have it, please go pick it up. It is a classic. It is a hip-hop gem. And a lot of times, King, we look at his actions that have gotten in the way of the music. Because one thing about it, for all of his shenanigans at times, that boy has given us some special stuff. I mean, producing, the Brown Sugar joint, of course, with Faith singing the hook, Most on the beat, Most on the rapping. We look at what he did with College Dropout album. We look at the mixtape he dropped before College Dropout. In my Kanye, in terms of my Kanye pantheon, in terms of albums that he's made, I have to rank, my favorite two have to be College Dropout and Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And to me, on Dark Twisted Fantasy, Ye just hit an apex to me that he has just never surpassed. To me, after he did that album, I think he just reached his peak of what he just, I mean, that album was just I didn't care for some of the ones that came after that. But, you know, the man still, when he is focused, when he is locked in, he has created some gems, and we can't deny that, his brilliance. And we're not going to dim his brilliance. But we have had comments about stuff
you know
he's
what,
done.
though, if you really look at it, he's always been that way. But his mom was the anchor to pretty much mold that arrogance from fully coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like, he always had that confidence, seeing big dreams mentality, but he didn't come across as too arrogant to where he rubbed people the wrong way. The confidence was actually captivating. Like, you wanted to see this guy win. And his mom helped mold him that. His mom was rapping his lyrics. His mom was, you know, celebrating with him when he first went platinum with College Dropout. They had a real, not only a mama and son relationship, but also a real good bondship because she believed in his vision. Even when a lot of people, The Rock, didn't believe in him, they wanted to keep him as just a producer. She was that anchor that kept him moving. So when he lost that, he never really recovered, because look at it like this, you gotta look at the timeline. She died around 2007. 2007 was where he was really reaching his apex as a, not just a rapper, but a rock star. Like a celebrity, you know what I mean? Because he had beaten 50 Cent in that. You remember that sales battle, that Fugazi sales battle that Def Jam and Interscope did?
Yeah.
Then, because you know, that's where he really broke out to be a rock star then. And then that's where she died. And he never really recovered from that. He never really had time to grieve, actually. Because,
you know, King. Yeah, go ahead.
Because now when you the supply and demand like that, like his stature, his stock done rose to megastar levels. Like, you up there with the A-listers now. You up there with the Jay-Z's. You up there with the Beyonce's. You up there with the Eminems. I ain't talking about skill set, but I'm talking about as in popularity. So we couldn't just take a break. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and when you look at it, King, when you're that creatively driven as he is, it doesn't necessarily allow for rest, because there's always things going through your mind. Him and his mother were close. Rest in peace, Mother Donda. And of course, you know, he really went through a lot emotionally. You know, the tragedy from the after effects of the surgery, he carried that with him because he paid for it, and he felt like, in a way, that he was the reason she died. So that's a hell of a burden to carry with you when, especially as your mother, you feel like you're the reason that she's gone. And did that do something to him? Absolutely, because that was the emotional tether that kept him anchored in a place of humility and stability. And once you lose that anchor, you're totally in a whole other place of going in different directions of inordinate, unpredictable, spontaneous reaction and action. You know, it becomes a wildfire of, you know, of just all over the place behavior. And for him, and I want to choose my words very carefully, King, when I say this. There are elements of the genius that you have, that I have, that were all a little nutty in that way, because genius is about being able, smart people can see the target and hit it. The genius sees the target before the target is there and hits the target before the target even shows up.
Mhm.
You know, they already know what's coming, and they've already honed in on what to do with it. And when you look at Ye in terms of how he wanted to not only define music, but define fashion and pop culture, there were the rants, and a lot of them, about how these fashion designers wouldn't let him in, you know, so he basically was going to force his way in, and he did. And because of that, you know, he has amassed quite a fortune doing it. You know, that is estimated to be at $1 billion, you know, from what Forbes has said. So obviously he has found his audience somewhere. And when you have that type of success, you, especially when you've done it on your own course of your creativity, there is going to be a bit of I told you so. There is going to be that vindication of what people thought you were absolutely nuts doing, but it worked for you. I will tell everybody this. There is only one Kanye Omari West. I would not suggest for people to do the same thing he did to get famous.
Yeah, you niggas can't go out there if you got 30 fans. You can't go out there and charge your album $200.
You know, and one thing about it is, you know, you have to understand, you know, for people that have really watched Kanye over the years, we've kind of come to expect certain boom behaviors from him. That's kind of become his branding. But that was just kind of a progression from where he started. And and if you've been listening to our show, ever since we talked about it with so many guests we've had, you know, we've all talked about, you know, substance versus shenanigans. But one thing about Kanye, even with his shenanigans, he has a hell of a catalog to back it up. You know, and like I said, for what he does, it's kind of expected from him to do something crazy. I tell some of these artists today, you can't be him just coming out there doing some loony shit and you're expecting to be, you know.
You gotta have the resume, because you have the resume to back a lot of that stuff up, man. You can get away with it. You can build that, what I like to use, the cult of personality, where you can get away with anything. He has the resume to back it up. He has the hit records. He has the success.
When you look at somebody like Nipsey that sold the Crenshaw mixtape for $100, Nipsey could do that because Nipsey already had his buzz out in L.A. Rest in peace to King Nip, you know, Hermias the Excellent. He could do that. When you look at MF Doom, one of my favorite MCs of all time, one of our favorite MCs of all time, MF Doom crafted, when you know the story of how he became MF Doom from Zed Love X and KMD, when you understand the story of how he came up with that spin-off of Dr. Doom from Marvel Comics and how he adopted that as his own identity, when you understand MF Doom's story behind that, then you understand the genius behind why that character worked for him. When you look at, you know, rest in peace, Shock G, you know, Visual Underground, Shock G and Humpty Hump, you know, that was just something special, you know, to behold in terms of the classics. You know, all these individuals were, you know, had their own brand of creativity, entrepreneurship, and individuality with their imagination that made them the legends that they were. And I can't say, King, that you can calculate how to be a legend because it's really up to your catalog and then how your fans receive it. You know, sometimes we get to throwing legend around too loosely because we're looking at sometimes getting caught up in the emotion of the moment rather than looking at the legacy that was really entrenched by what they did. Was Nip a legend? Absolutely. Because look at what Nip did before he even got on before he even released Victory Lap. He was already moving ahead. You know, when we look at Pop Smoke, rest in peace, was he a legend? Pop Smoke made good music, but he was still in the nascent stages of carving out his legacy.
See, what that's all about, see, it goes back to what we were talking about the other night with Pat and Royal Flush. See, it wasn't real. The symmetrics is different when it comes to people buying records and streaming records. He became a star just off of streams because his album was streamed heavily like crazy. But the real stars and the real buying power stands from a person drives their ass to that record store and buy your album or order your album for that matter. When they could go and buy that product physically, that's when you know right there that you have a base. Anybody can manipulate numbers. Streams are manipulated every day.
Absolutely. You know, and one thing about it, King, is you see it. You know, when you look at all the modern legends, we look at Tupac, Biggie, the impacts they made. You know, that was our generation. We're still hurt today because we wonder how much music was lost between the both of them. We look at our modern day legends, Jay-Z, Nas, Cool G Rap, Razzcast, Richie Rich, Cocaine, who was the most featured artist in hip-hop history, you know, with over 5,000 features. I mean, Snoop Dogg, Spice One, you know, Special One, rest in peace, and CMG from the Conscious Daughters, you know, Scarface, Fat Joe, Taboo, you know, we got up-and-comer legends like R.J. Payne, you know, who's really going to really change the game. You know, we look at producers, you know what I'm saying, like Big Swift from Rap-A-Lot, Mike Dean, you know, Mike and Keys, you know, Cool and Dre. I mean, shit, Premier, Dr. Dre, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the list goes on of people, you know, whether they were producers or rappers, who really, legend is when, you know, and I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I didn't come up with this, but when I heard it, I knew it was applied. History, to make history is one thing. It's another thing to be part of the history, because you know you've truly defined history when they can't talk about the history of something without you. When you have to be mentioned in terms of how you cultivated history in any capacity, that's when you know you have really become a staple, a fixture, and a legendary figure in it. You know, and that's just what it is.